Today we're going to be making BaoZi, a Chinese stuffed bun. A few years back, I spent 4 months living in Suzhou, China, a city that was about 50 miles west of Shanghai. While I was there, I had my mind blown by the kinds of variety that you could find in the street food all over the place. And one item that was very easy to find everywhere was BaoZi. And today, we're going to be taking a crack at it here, in our home kitchen. So with that said, I think it's about time for us to get to this.
Alrighty then, with the intro shots out of the way, let's start with the dough. Surprise, surprise, if you've seen any of the bread-related episodes before, you'll know that the first step is to always bloom your yeast. For today's bao, that means gathering 1 cup of lukewarm water and mixing in 1 tablespoon of your fast-rise yeast. Give that about 10 minutes to wake up, and while that's happening, let's start preparing the dry ingredients. We're going to be making a lot of bao today, so don't be surprised by the large proportions of ingredients, okay? But to a mixing bowl, drop in 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and 1 teaspoon kosher salt. Toss everything to combine with a rubber spatula before dropping in your activated culture of yeast. After that, continue to hydrate the flour before giving up, pulling it out on the counter, and using your hands and a bit of elbow grease to get everything all mixed and combined. And here is the point in the recipe that you burn out all of the calories you'll eventually be eating. Don't be afraid to add more water as you go if need be. Just focus on adding small amounts of water at a time. During this kneading process, you'll go for about 10 to 15 minutes, or until you've formed a cohesive, well-hydrated, and slightly tacky ball. When your dough is well formed into a ball, generously coat a large bowl with olive oil. Toss the ball around to fully mix in the olive oil, and cover in plastic wrap before setting in a warm, draft-free environment. The oven with the light left on makes for a nice fermentation station when you don't have the funds for a dedicated setup. There, it will rest for about 2 hours or so, plenty of time for us to work on the filling. For this simple dumpling or BaoZi filling, you'll need to finely mince 3 green onions, along with some sort of cabbage, preferably a Napa cabbage or a bok choy if you can find it. Take that cabbage and finely mince that as well, ending up with about a cup of fine mince. Everything is going to be as small as possible so that we can mix it in more evenly. Speaking of mix, lay down 1 to 1.5 pounds of ground pork into a mixing bowl, and top with 1 teaspoon Worcestershire sauce, or W sauce or whatever it is, as well as 1 tablespoon of ginger paste, your bok choy and green onions, and next comes 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, because this liquid makes anything taste 1,000 times better. Followed by that, a tablespoon of rice wine vinny. Last on the liquid list is 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, but we'll also add in about 2 teaspoons of black pepper and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now if you're using a stand mixer, great. Use the dough hook and follow the same instructions. But for all others out there, take your mixing utensil of choice and focus on one direction stirring. Choose clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter as long as you choose one and you're consistent throughout. What this does is the repeated motion will pull the fibers of the pork to align with the direction of motion and creates a lighter and juicy filling in the end. Mix for 3 to 5 minutes or until just combined. Grab a bit of plastic wrap and place in the fridge until the rest of the dough is done with its fermentation. After about an hour and 45 minutes have gone by, we've made it to the dough forming time. After its rise, the dough is going to be a whole heck of a lot more pliable, which is exactly what we need. To make the bao, you'll start by sectioning off a small piece, slightly larger than a golf ball, and rolling it as thin as you possibly can. A technique that I found was helpful was to roll forward, pick the dough up and spin a quarter turn around, and roll again, continuously switching back and forth between rolling and turning until you have a dough disc that is about 5 to 6 inches in diameter. Now for the pleating. You'll place a spoonful of your filling into the center and begin pleating around in a circle. It's helpful to keep one hand stationary while you use the other to pinch and fold the next pleat. Continue around the circle until you finally pinch and twist the dough together to make a seal. Set aside on a small strip of parchment paper greased with non-stick spray, and rinse and repeat until you've made your way through all of the filling or all of the dough. All in all, I was able to make about 16 baozi with extra dough left over. But that's okay, we'll find a use for it. Maybe we'll make a pizza bao or something, I don't know, haven't decided yet. But focusing back on today's recipe, because I don't have a column of bamboo steamer baskets, it logistically doesn't make sense for me to try to steam all 16. It's gonna take all day. We're going to try 2 different cooking techniques. First is steaming in a large pot with a very shallow amount of water in the base. Following that, you'll place a vegetable steamer in the pot along with 2 or 3 of your bao, keeping in mind that they will grow considerably and you don't want them to touch. Finally, cover with a towel-wrapped lid to prevent condensation from dripping down and making things too moist. Let steam for about 12 to 15 minutes before setting aside to cool. For the set of non-traditional oven-baked bao, you'll simply set your sheet of stuffed bao on the mid-rack of a 400-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes, or until you're able to have this nice and lovely golden brown crust to them. Honestly, I didn't think that these would crispen up as much as they did, but wow was I surprised. Definitely thought that the oven-baked bao were going to be a product of convenience, but honestly, this might be how I go about making them for the time being, until I can get myself a bamboo steamer. Finally, let's talk about making a super simple dipping sauce. And I mean real simple. To a small dipping vessel, add in 1/3 of a cup of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, 1 tablespoon of ginger paste, and lastly a pinch of chili flakes for extra spicy. Mix all together and adjust the ingredients according to your tastes. Because there are only 4 ingredients here, it's super simple to mix together different proportions to move the sauce to your preference. But with all of that together, that's all there is to it. Sit back and practice your chopstick skills while you eat some delicious homemade baozi. The steamed bao definitely have a bit more work associated in making them, but they carry the very chewy and springiness to the dough that is traditionally associated with the bun. But when you're trying to churn out a large number of bao, the oven roasted technique makes for an amazing alternative. And if you're looking for a side dish to go with your bao, try your hand in making some Sichuan fire peanuts, the next video in this series. Baozi is an incredibly tasty dish, and I could not recommend it more for those days when you want to try to step out of your comfort zone and try making something new. Sure, it's a little tricky to get the pleating just right, and it might not look as pretty as some people's, but I can promise you that the taste of your own work is very rewarding. And now we're at the point of the video where I like to ask y'all to like, subscribe, share, and all that jazz, for more creations that'll spice up your meal routine without breaking your budget. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.